jump over the banks and doing that. We call it some dancers, let's be dancers. And I look at the height and I think that's impossible. This is nuts. I'm not doing it. I refuse. Welcome. I'm so glad you're here. Welcome to How to Build a Measure of Your Creation. My name is Stephanie, and by way of introduction, I was one of those women in the 80s that got married as a teenager. Yes, it's true. I found this handsome man named Rich and got married when I was 19. But when the children came along, I lied to them and told them I was 20 because it sounded better. But they figured it out. It wasn't long before they figured it out. Yes. Well, it all worked out. And 38 married years later, we grew from 2 to 6 to 20 of us. And I introduced myself this way because being a mother and a wife and a grandmother have been the greatest blessings of my life. And they've certainly propelled me towards fulfilling the measure of my creation. But I'm not going to talk about these dear people today. I'm going to talk about another part of my life, the professional part of my life. Specifically, that as a charter school administrator, where I served for 15 years. If you'd asked as a young adult, what are you going to be? I would have never said I was a charter school administrator. But the Lord had different plans, and He realized that it was in this role I would have the opportunity to develop latent talents within you. Feel free to come in and come sit down. We're glad you're here. So, I want to share an experience from that time in my life. This specifically was I was at Excelsior Academy. I was executive director there. And when I arrived at one beautiful school, 650 students, grades kindergarten through 8th grade. And over the years that I was there, I was given the opportunity to grow that school with a capable team. And we did just that. We grew it to 2 schools, much greater campus, and 1,400 students. And at the time this experience occurred, we had been just given permission by the Utah State Board of Education to double our school size again, which is very hard to get. It takes over a year of trial and hard work. But although we've been given this permission to go up to 3,000, it was now our opportunity to then reflect as an administration. Was it right for Excelsior to take this leap of faith? Was it right? And so we were meeting with realtors, contractors, finance people, all these people. It was a very intense time in my career. On the personal side, I was having some annoying health issues, and I kept them to myself except my closest friends. I'd had them for a couple of years, starting in COVID time, and this was a couple of years after COVID. These health issues included spasms in the back of my neck, flu-like symptoms every 2 to 3 weeks, and sinus pressure right around the other side of my nose. I visited an ENT, and there was a sinus infection, and I see on his wall a poster that says, "Fix your chronic runny nose." I was like, that was another issue I had. And I was thinking, is this menopause? I'm certainly in the right years, but it just doesn't seem to be in the menopausal category. Well, I looked at that and thought, maybe that would take care of the sinus pressure, and I certainly had chronic runny nose. It was a simple procedure. You have it at 5 o'clock at night after work, and you're back at work the next morning. All they do is freeze the insides of the nasal membranes. It's a cryo procedure. So I had it done. In the procedure, I had a sharp pain in the tip of my left nose, but I didn't say anything about it because I figured it's supposed to hurt. Well, the next day they said, you'll get a brain freeze headache. Scratch that. Like when you sit on a surfing too fast. And I did. I got that brain freeze headache. And then the following day, I had a low-grade migraine. And I was familiar with migraines because as a child, I had developed migraines about the age of 8. And they were quite severe. great deal of pain. I'd pass out, sleep for several hours, and then wake up hours later. Great thing I grew out of them somewhere in my teenage years. So, after that low-grade migraine, I had another one. And another one. Within about 2 or 3 weeks, I was having migraines every single day. And they were getting progressively worse. But there was something unusual about this migraine. They came with a stabbing pain in the wee hours of the morning, 2 to 3 o'clock in the morning. Stabbing pain in that part of my nose where that procedure hurt so very badly. In the left side of my nose, my cheek, and my eyeball. Stabbing pain would wake me up suddenly. And then it would turn into hot cold shooting through the crown of my head. That was full of pain. This was going on every single day. And I was the person who needed to be at work every single day, which I was. And so I thought I was going to do something to help myself through this health crisis so I can continue on in my duties. So I reached back to what I learned in graduate school about cognitive behavioral therapy. Aaron Beck, the developer of CBT, he said this about CBT, what is cognitive behavioral therapy. He said, the way you think determines the way you feel and the way you act. Well, Aaron Beck had many students of cognitive behavioral therapy, and one of those students' name was David Burns, also another psychiatrist. David Burns popularized CBT. He brought it to the masses by writing the book, Feeling Good, and then republishing it to Feeling Great. What was so wonderful about Feeling Great was it was written for everyday people, and it was full of techniques that you could use to help yourself through whatever you're going through. And it had a technique in there called talk to yourself as if you were your very best friend. It was easy to understand. He said, you're much kinder to your friends and forgiving and understanding than you are to yourselves. This is the way Burns described CBT. He described it this way. Thoughts create emotions. And by challenging distorted thoughts, people can drastically improve their mood rather quickly. So the idea is, CBT teaches us that people have distorted thoughts, and they feel very real. They feel truthful, they feel actual, but they're not. They're not real. And even though they're not real, they feel real, and they affect the way we feel, and that feeling, that emotion affects the way we behave. So I took that technique of talk to yourself as if you're your very best friend, and used it to get to work every day. I started applying myself, sweetheart, in all sincerity. In the morning, after having a very hard night, starting around 2 a.m., I said to myself, sweetheart, you are stronger than you realize. You have strength beyond your understanding. You can do it. Get out of bed. The Lord is with you. Then I say, you have a calling. It's at Excelsior Academy. There are hundreds of kids out there waiting for you. They need you. There's this kind of conversation I would have with myself that would keep me going during this health crisis. Well, it was at this time that Tooele County, which is where our Excelsior schools were located, there was a tragedy at the local high school, which was a few blocks away from my school that ended in the 8th grade. A teenage boy died by suicide. And it was such a heartbreak and a stab in the stomach to those that knew and loved him. And for me, after the initial shock, it was like a wake-up call. I felt like the students of Excelsior, I must protect them. With what? With knowledge. By teaching them a few simple techniques of cognitive behavioral therapy before they go to what I consider some of the hardest years of their life, high school. So I grabbed a couple of my counselors and I said, let's create some classes. Students learn better in classroom-sized groups, not a big assembly. And let's create a little workbook. We only have a few days left of school. We can do this. And I was now going to teach 5 classes in a day, and they were each going to teach some classes. of cognitive behavioral therapy. At this point, I had at least 60 days in a row of these migraines as I was trying. I was weakened both physically and emotionally. I knew I needed help. I said to my husband, would you give me a priesthood blessing? I need extra help to make it through this day. It will take great energy to fulfill that duty and my own duties. So, and I also said to him, I know exactly what needs to be said. Let me tell you. I need to be healed. Make sure that happens. I have a colleague kill me. Have Laura kill me. So, he started the blessing. And in the blessing, there was just a little bit that was about me. It was about that I did think the strength that I needed, the endurance that I hadn't felt in weeks, and that I also gave the words to say. That's all it wasn't about me. And then the rest was about a certain student whose life was in a fragile condition. And this student needed these lessons to save the student's life. I went into this blessing thinking I knew exactly what needed to happen, and came out realizing, okay, I have a thing to fulfill the Lord's will. I went to school the next day. I had a migraine as usual, starting at 2 a.m. I had strength that I hadn't felt in weeks. I had words come to me freely. And I'm going to share with you the story that I shared with these students that happened to me at the time when I was their age to help them understand distorted thoughts. And I'll share with you a portion of the story considering the time that we have. And this is how the story goes. When I was 14 years old, I was invited to dance with the University of Utah's ballet department. And after that, I was recruited onto their ballet company called Utah Ballet. And they formed in Utah and ran the Intermountain West. This is when I went to high school. It was about 11 a.m. and then the University of West Virginia. Every day we had a technique class. The company had a technique class. It was 2 hours long. And this technique class was taught by, I'll call her, Ms. Vladimir. She was the director of Utah Ballet. Let me tell you, Ms. Vladimir was very demanding. She was quick-tempered, and she was known to make dancers cry. It was the end of the 2-hour class, and then we were headed to rehearsal. At the end of the ballet class, there's always a big leap combination. It really is exhilarating. You start in the back corner, and you start like this, and you chasse, and you go into a big leap combination, chaîné turn, lots of turns, and you plant the landing, traveling across a large studio from the back to the front. And right when we were about to finish, we hear a bang on the piano. And Miss Wagner said, I can't stand it. I can't stand it. I can't stand to watch you dance. You give me nothing. You give me nothing. You call yourself dancers. You hardly leave the floor. Go. Get your bags. And I thought, great. She's sick of us. We're out of here. So I run to get my bag, thinking, let me flee. I turned to get my bag, and she says, no. You bring your bag to the center of the room. All of you bring your bag to the center of the room. Pile them in the center of the room. Trina, where's Trina? Trina, come back. Trina, come here. Come here, Trina. She takes Trina by the shoulder, and she places Trina carefully on top of the bag. And she says to the rest of us, now, you do the combination and you jump over the bags and Trina. You call yourself dancers. Let's be dancers. And I look at the height and I think that's impossible. This is nuts. I'm not doing it. I refuse. That was loud as she's looking at me. And she's looking at all the dancers, but especially me, because I'm a rising star. And she won't take her eyes off me. And I started to push forward the line, and in what we were going to do, so I started to pray. Father, please give me strength beyond my own. Give me height beyond my own. I don't want to kill Trina. I can see my names. Please, I can decapitate. I can decapitate Trina. And I shot it, and I leave and I look up. Because if I look up, I will go up, and I shot it and leave swiftly. And then I shut it, turn on, I press, and I do not decapitate Trina. I crack over her, completely over her, and I'm landed. I'm so shivering and grateful. And I walk towards the back of the studio, just so relieved that we're both living. And then the next thing I hear is another snap from Miss Vladimir. And she said, "It's not good enough. It's not good enough. You're the king, Trina. You ducked your head." Well, for the sake of time, I'll end that dramatic story there, but it continues to climb its jungle. And I went back to the stews, and now I tell them about distorted thoughts. I said it was at this time that I remember distinctly my mind being crowded with thoughts like this. Your body just isn't right. Your legs are not long enough. If they were longer, you could have leaps like that all of the time. Yes, I don't think they're powerful enough or strong enough. I don't think your footwork is fast enough. I don't think you have the talent to be amongst this caliber of dancers. That's what I was hearing when it left me feeling embarrassed, anxious, worried, and then I wanted to hide away. I couldn't, but I dreamed of there being some sort of catastrophe that would keep me from going to dance class because I knew I would have imminent failure. So, at the time, I knew nothing about distorted thoughts. But this is how I was feeling. Now, knowing about distorted thoughts, I could challenge that by saying this. Well, wait a minute. I am a lyrical dancer. I've been told that. And I've been told that even so, I can leap a little bit like a gazelle. That I always leap very high, but with grace. And it's this very length, that have helped me with those leaps. Yes, these are the ways that I've done it. And I wouldn't be the youngest dancer on this company by far, recruited to dance with adults, if I didn't have the talent to be here. That's how I challenged distorted thoughts. And at that time, I felt to look over this way. And my eyes met the glare of a certain boy. As I'm talking about how to challenge distorted thoughts. And I could see in his eyes understanding. And a sense of relief as it rolled up his shoulders. And in the spirit were a witness to me that this was a certain goal that was spoken, and that his words spoken through me had just saved his life. And in that moment, I knew I had taken a leap towards the measure of my creation. The Lord Jesus Christ wants us to succeed by following his example. And in his ministry, he heals the sick. And he gives us, through divine design, opportunities to heal one another. Like that moment, it's like the scripture says, all things were made by him, and without him was not anything made that was made. John chapter 1, verse 3. All those moments, think of them in your life where you come upon someone, or they come upon you. He created those moments. Well, 3 years more have passed, and I continue on in my migraine journey. I decided to retire early from being a school administrator, and now I have another calling. And I get to now focus on moments when the Lord has put his hand in our lives and helped us fulfill the measure of our creation. As the host of Dear Daughters of God, a video podcast, it's on now. It's on YouTube. It started on an audio platform. It's still there. But in the last 10 videos, I've added YouTube. So now you can see these stories unfold. I tell the stories of my sisters and brothers where they've seen the hand of God in their life. And by noticing that hand of God, they better understand the measure of their creation. And I invite you to find us on YouTube under the channel We're Daughters of God and be inspired as to what your calling is on this earth. And as it changes from season to season, by paying attention to when God's hand is in your life. As I was taught to bow when the very best was lying there, I continue on in that tradition as I say your will until we meet again.